We back. Thinking Mindz podcast. We here. Today's a special day, man. We got our first guest, man. Clap it up, man. Yeah. We got our first guest in the building. I am MackcDontSleep. Sometimes. So we're gonna go around. We're gonna go around the room, introduce ourselves. We can start this way.
Mark Wood.
Answer to the question to be or not to be, meant to be.
Yeah.
And I'm Micheal Killen.
Micheal Killen. That's what's up. So today, pretty interesting. We'll let you introduce yourself, give just a little background on yourself, and then we'll go in on the topic.
Okay. So I guess I should, if I tend to be more appropriate with it, Dr. Micheal Killen. So
okay.
I was about to ask you that. I was like, man.
Yeah, so I have a PhD in microbiology, immunology, and molecular genetics. And so I kind of specialize in how that, my PhD research was in human molecular genetics.
Okay. How long did it take for all that?
I mean, if you count all the previous, I think I was 32 when I got out of college.
Is that something that like piqued your interest when you was a kid, or is that something whenever you was like, man, I'm smart enough to do this? I just a call for it.
I decided I was going to be a scientist in the 6th grade.
Okay.
So we
In
had
the
a teacher,
sixth grade.
we had a teacher
Experiment or something.
When they took the
yeah,
frogs
yeah.
apart?
So we had a science teacher in 6th grade and come through and did some chemistry stuff, and I was locked in after that. So
was that here? Did you grow up here? Or
No,
else?
so I grew up in kind of northeastern Kentucky, kind of small rural area.
Around Pike County?
Not quite that far east. More, you know where Maysville, Ashland's at?
Yeah.
So up in between those, it's a little town called Vanceburg. Kentucky speak, that would be Lewis County.
Okay.
Where did you go to school?
Where? It was Lewis County High School. And then, my PhD and bachelor's degrees are from University of Kentucky.
Oh, let's go.
Okay.
Wildcats.
Blue,
Yeah, all the way.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
And now he teaches at WKU. Yeah. Shout out.
How long you been at WKU?
I've been there 12 years now.
Okay.
Oh, wow. 12 years.
A bit, yeah.
That's cool. And before we go any further, disclaimer, we're not here to hurt anybody's feelings. We're not here, this ain't about race, religion, any of that. None of these comments.
It is.
We're not here to hurt anybody's feelings.
No.
Yes.
Or disrespect anybody. These are just, there is truths to this, but these also are our perspectives. He has the education in what he's talking about, but coming from us, the Thinking Mindz podcast, this is a perception show of how we feel and how we think, and we just want to lead y'all into thinking also. Yeah. A lot of times when we talk about things, we kind of lead y'all in and leave it blank for y'all to come up with your own research about these shows. Disclaimer about WKU, this is not on WKU time.
Nope.
This is on his personal time coming here and doing this, and we appreciate that. And so, furthermore, further said, back to WKU. So you teach there. How's it there?
It's great. I mean, I've been teaching there for 12 years, and anything from, I've taught in the chemistry department and biology, so anything from chemistry through biochemistry through anatomy, physiology, microbiology, so kind of all the more medical leaning sciences.
Okay. So you gonna jump into it, man?
Yeah. Got some questions just to get another kind of like a background on where you stand on some things. Where are you at? Like, how does science tie into a faith or a religion for you? Like,
So for me personally, it doesn't at all. So I mean, those to me are two completely separate things. When you talk science are things that we understand, right? We can rationally and logically work our way through. I mean, when you talk faith, to me that's no different than magic in the sense of magic were things that were science. They're just things that no one understood in the first place, right? I mean, we come from when you talk prehistoric times when people didn't understand fire or lightning or things like that, they were magic, right? And I mean, faith kind of falls a little bit to that direction, right? It's things that we don't understand.
so do you believe?
I believe I fall more under agnostic, so not necessarily going either way, and definitively am not a churchgoer or anything of that nature.
So how, like, as far as the advancement of science, and we'll get into this, like, so before we started recording, I asked you about, because I'd heard something went down in Alabama, and it was, to me, it was science versus religion, once again. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so as far as a society, what needs to be the separation there? Like, how much should religion hinder science and vice versa?
Well, I don't think religion should hinder. I mean, just in that logic in itself, when you talk about religion, like I said, I'm not saying it's not real, but I'm saying it's kind of like magic in the sense that we don't understand it.
Right.
So how do you let something we don't understand hinder something that we do understand? But I mean, at the same time, I don't think it necessarily has to be involved that way. It's kind of like religious and state; those things should be separate. Whereas I think on the other side of that, science and state should be completely tied together. Because the thing about that is you take scientists, and we're going to talk about some other stuff here later, and we're going to talk about.
But who should win in that battle though? Because sometimes we see it every day to where a decision has to be made, and you either got to go with science or you got to go with. So
that's probably going to my answer. That's probably going to surprise you. I mean, I'm a scientist through and through. Like we were talking about earlier, I decided that when I was 10 years old, I decided I was going to be a scientist. And that's how I think and how I live my life day to day. But at the same time, in that, I think society has to win, right? Because I'm capable of doing, cloning a person or making a death ray and if I'm left unchecked and I do that, what consequences does that have for society, right? Because we live in a society. And I think the problem is society doesn't have enough, it doesn't get the access to enough education. But I think at the end of the day, society has to make that decision, right? We live together as a group of people, have to decide, hey, do we want cloning to happen? Do we want death rays to be made, right? Do we want this, whatever it is?
So should that be made at the state level, the federal level, community? Like, where should that start and stop at?
I'm a big Republic guy. So, I mean, I a personal opinion, I think that's at the state level. Just because I think once you get to the federal government side, it almost gets too large to deal with. I mean, you have because the further you go up, you have fewer individuals making decisions for more people. Right, state level, that's still a few individuals making, and hopefully they listen to their constituents, and hopefully their constituents talk, and that makes the difference of the decisions that they make, which is not always the case, and we know it's not, but hopefully it is, idealistically. But if you move up to federal, right, you have fewer individuals making more decisions for fewer people, so the likelihood of the voices being heard,
and I feel like that's
decreases.
a lot of times that's where the overreach happens at, right? When you get to the federal level, like we always hear about, well, the state can't do this, but man, the feds can.
Yeah.
Right.
But it also seems like it's more. It should be more. These are the facts, and this is what we stand on. But a lot of people don't want to believe the facts. So, like it.
And that's what I'm hearing too.
Have you just say had an experience where you discovered something that could really change something, but there was an entity that stopped it and said, "No, this ain't the right time," or you know what I'm saying? That type of deal. I'm pretty sure there's things.
Yeah, and I don't know that I've necessarily done anything that remarkable that ever got shut down as far as the science I've done.
Let's say everyday conversation, that you might talk with somebody and they're being stubborn about something. Do you think, are people more receptive now or?
Of science.
Yeah. Is that changing?
I don't think they're more receptive. I also don't think they're less receptive. I think there's honestly and it's not necessarily this media outlet or this. I think there's disinformation everywhere now.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about how much we will miss out on and like I'm saying, we was talking about the battle between religion and science. I feel like we will miss out on a lot if we let religion win every time.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah. What?
On that, I'm glad you brought it back up. Do you think religion is hindering science, or do you think religion is necessary for society, more necessary than society, or do you think science is more necessary for society?
I don't think you can have one without the other, right? I mean, you can, right? I mean, you can have science without, and you can embark on all these things and find in society advances and we get better, but what's the odds we get less human, right? And then when it comes back to it, you have to define what's human, and it's like religion, just the same as art, right? I mean, if you don't have music and you don't have a beautiful sunset or a picture or those are the things that make all of that worth doing. And I don't think you can segregate them out. Like, they both get in each other's way, right?
Yeah,
I mean, science definitely brings stuff that disagrees with so many religions. And there's so many religious beliefs that, scientists or science would say, hey, this isn't the way that this should go. And I mean, I think they have to mesh because that's what humanity is. Right now, if we want to disregard humanity, I'm voting science every time.
Really? Okay. Have you seen The Miracle?
I have not.
Have y'all? Have y'all in your lifetime seen
Miracle on 34th Street?
No.
A miracle.
A miracle. Like what you
Something
would
that
do.
I thought was, hey man. That's
Yes,
a
like
miracle.
Oh, yeah, of course.
scientifically that could.
Of
So
course.
are you saying doing your whole times as a scientist, you have not encountered something or a time in which you are like, science couldn't have done that, nothing else could have done that, and that is what I consider a miracle? You have not encountered such thing?
I have not encountered anything like that in my life.
That makes it, I guess that makes that like that understand your perspective.
And it's crazy because with probably going through just say the schooling and everything like that, that would prove a lot of theories of different things to be not true. Right. Conspiracies or whatnot, because if somebody says such and such, the sky or your body can do this, and you're like, come on, no, it can't. You know what I'm saying? Right. Because of this. I'm pretty sure people try to Google check you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, you get a lot of that too. And a lot of it. So I remember dating a girl in high school and having these kind of discussions then. And she went through, she's like, well, the Bible talks about bone marrow. How would they know about bone marrow if it's way back then? And then I was like, have you ever ate a chicken leg? Right? You break that dude open and there's bone marrow, right? So it's there's a lot of that I think there's stuff that you're educated and but then there's also a way people think about things. And to be honest, I think that's a bigger problem than anything is we're not teaching people to think that way, right? I mean, when you talk about one of my favorite things my dad taught me, it's like if your car is, not running, it's three things, right? It's fuel, it's air, it's fire. And if you can figure out which one of those things is, you can take it apart and fix it. And people don't stand back and say, what's the simplest thing here, right? I start small and build my way up. And people just aren't taught to think that way.
Yeah.
What level do you feel like humanity, and I'm going to get into kind of like a rabbit hole here. Do you believe that, like, when you think of, we're going back to humanity thousands and thousands of years, do you believe that there was a super intelligent civilization, or do you believe history is the way it's taught? Like, we discovered fire and we progressed from there.
I think we know so little about history, it's scary. I mean, I think we have history, right? And we study these things and we find out things that aren't true every day, right? The oldest civilization were the Egyptians and they built this, and that was 4,000. Well, okay, here's this city we found from 10,000 years ago. But I mean, you go back and think about it, and one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen is you go and look at the Mayan calendar, right? And so we had the doomsday that didn't come, right? But if you look at history there, honestly, for them, people took it as a doomsday, and the media took that and ran with it, right? Mm-hmm. But Mayan culture that's a circling of cycles. It wasn't end of, right? I mean, it represents end of, but it's an end of a cycle, not necessarily a civilization. But the crazy thing about that is that calendar is based on not us moving, not our moon moving, not the sun moving. It's based on our universe moving in the Milky Way. How do you even start to fathom that, right? And they've calculated this out for thousands of years, and they were off, right? They were off by like 13 days. But they did this on stone tab. I mean, I'm a smart guy. I have a math degree. You need supercomputers to start calculating that stuff. I mean, it's the mathematical prowess of some of the ancient civilizations is just astounding to me, because find people that do that now.
So do you think humans' mind have decreased as time went on?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you have societal
They
pressures.
taught that the earth was flat for how long? You know what I'm saying? The church did. So there kind of goes.
Well, I mean, some people still do.
So they had to,
Well, it seems like it was I'm going to say a wipeout, but maybe a wipeout of memory somewhere down the line of history with humans, where we had a completely restart, where it could have been supernatural beings and a lot of different things, and then something happened and memory was wiped like a computer. You know what I'm saying? And restarted again.
That's kind of where I was going with the question. Like, do you believe there was a really intelligence back then that was either lost, or maybe there's an intelligence that we still have today? Only certain people have it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Like and that's what I am. Go ahead. What I'm asking too.
Well, it kind of more to your point for like, and again, what I think, who actually really knows, and that's kind of the point of it, right? And when you talk history, I think it's just we have a really poor recorded history, right? I mean, we're trying to interpret stuff off of Mayan tablets that we can't read, and you know, you have the libraries of Alexandria, which we don't have, and you have all this history. I mean, there's nothing recorded anywhere, right? And so things by mouth
could be somewhere that we just don't know about. Like the Vatican has archives. Who knows what's underneath that city? Right. You know,
and it's hard to say. So it's the question of what we don't know. But to get to that point, one of those things is, I mean, history is the winner's perspective, right? Whoever won the war gets to write the history books,
right?
And the problem is that's not a clear narrative, right? So I mean, even the history we have is.
And if knowledge is power, if there is a sect of people that do have this knowledge, why would they relinquish it? Because a lot of times when you're transparent and you relinquish knowledge to somebody, then you relinquish the power with it, right? Yeah. I mean, if there's somebody that has the mysteries to the universe that we're talking about, why would they give it up if it's, if they got the upper hand?
I mean, if I knew it, I wouldn't tell y'all.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a story being told right now called One Piece, and the whole idea of the story is it starts out with like everybody advanced, got these like abilities, but then the more that they go, they realize they are not the most advanced, and now they are to a point in which where it is being explained that there was once an advanced civilization and they lost a war against this new established civilization. And this new established civilization started literally out as zero, and it wiped out everything about that civilization. And only but it was scary. The thing that's scary, right? This is like a quote unquote anime, right? That's been going on for like 30 years. And he's been writing the story very little by little, and it's called One Piece. And the idea of One Piece was supposed to be this One Piece treasure. But more you watch it, you realize like he has only tell stories about what we are called the world government here, and it gets to make you think like, what if someone like that had like an actual secret, but he couldn't come out and be like, hey, this is what actually is, right? And they would do it in those stories, like. Because I mean, I'm not saying this as in like that's what it is, but I'm just saying like you saying things like the Mayans calendar dictating us moving in space, not like our sun moving around all kind of in space through the Milky Way, and then see. Right, like, but now yes, we have so many smart people like Elon Musk going to space, right? Those kind of people you are here like. So is he the smartest, or is he just like the tip? Because he himself is like, no, like our brain is not being used as more as it used to be used as fast. I don't know.
really want to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's what we're.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking about.
Rabbit hole show.
So we were kind of talking earlier about whether people were getting smarter or getting less smart, and I don't think there's no indication scientifically that the capability for like human IQ has changed in 10,000 years, right? We know more because we have books and we have schools, we have education, and we learn stuff faster and sooner, and
We have access.
we have access, and that's the thing. But when you talk about how that works, right? So, and the question is, are there some individuals more capable than others? And I mean, obviously, right? We have the Einsteins in the world and people that the Elon Musk that accomplish things. But my question is always less about those people, more about the people that were capable that don't, right? Because the other thing we have now is we have more access, but we also we feel less connected, but we're honestly more connected now than we've ever been, right? I mean, we know stuff that's happening in kind of what we see is happening in Alabama or New York or Syria, or we know more about the world, and we have if I want to talk to one of my friends, I just call them on the phone, right? But the other side of that is when you start thinking, one of the biggest things I've ever, and like when you start thinking group mentalities of stuff, right? Even if you take a really supremely intelligent person and you put them in a group, they perform worse. And I've done this. Sadly, in my classes, I've paid attention to this, and so you always have people that are like, oh, can we take this in a group? Can we take they have a quiz today? Can we do this in a group? Can we do this? And it's a quiz. No, you can't. But occasionally, I'll be lured into it, and I'm like, okay, here's a little lesson. Let's find out what happens, and I'll let them take quizzes in a group. And I've done that a few times, and then I go back and do the stats on it. And the thing that you see every time is, on average, they do worse. So the ideal of two minds being better than one, if it's cooperative, that's true, right? But that's not necessarily the smartest person in the group isn't always the one that speaks up.
No, that's true. So that's what brings me to my point. Could it be that like so much humans now on the earth, right? Like, and so much information all at once, instead of one person having all the information with less humans at the time, right? Like one person back in like the Mayan time might have been capable of so many different things all at the same time, versus now that one person would just do one thing, right? Because there are so many of us and they all have to do something else. Do you think that kind of, maybe not as a civilization, we have information more collectively, but individually we have less information, even though we have so much information out there? Do you think that's a possibility?
I think the problem there, I don't know that it's necessarily, I wouldn't think that it's that we have less individually. I think we have the ability to choose to have less, is what you're saying, right? Like,
okay,
when you grow up and you say, I want to be a plumber, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to be, and society focuses you on that.
Okay.
And that's what you do, which is kind of what you're saying, right? So we're not driven to be a jack of all trades. But
yes,
but there's still people that are that way.
Yeah, okay.
As a teacher, and let's say you have a student in there and you see that happening, do you try to, how do you get that out of them? Like, if you got a thinker in your class and you're like, man, this dude needs to go somewhere, like, because we need thinkers now, right?
Right.
Do you feel obligated?
I occasionally I have exceptional students, and I always pull them inside and say, hey, what are you doing? What do you want to do? Have you thought about this? And I say, hey, if it's something you're interested in, I have this friend. I can, if you want to go shadow and learn some more about this. So I try to give them resources.
Right.
At the end of the day, you can't make their decisions for them, right? It's a kind of horse to water thing. But
So I have a perception, right? So I have a perception, and I kind of have put this into myself, and this is kind of what I live by now. Because I'm sober, I'm 6 years sober, different things like that. I've been through a lot in my life, and I almost had to like reset myself once I got sober. Like, everything I learned, all this stuff, like, and that's how I became a thinker. Started reading a little bit more. I started challenging myself. I got out of the system of working a job and working for myself, and pushed myself to the limit here and there. And it seemed like I started unlocking stuff. So what I want to get to is kind of the perception that everybody has all the knowledge, only some can access. So if we only use just a small percentage of our brain, and this goes for everybody, and they say like if you get to like 10% or 15%, you're like a genius or something like that.
Right.
So is that a thing that people can have the knowledge and we're not able to access?
I don't think that's so. The ideal of the thought of how that works is a complete misnomer, right? So there's this idea of we only use 10% of our brains, and dolphins use more. So how the brain works and when you're talking about it. So within the brain you have two different. So you have cells, and if you look at a neuron, like a body of a cell, and it has all these axons running down, there's big long strings. Right, and those strings go to other neurons and connect, and it all connects together like this giant computer. And what you see is the cell bodies, right? So you talk about white matter, gray matter. White matter is where you see the cell, or white matter is where you're going to see the actual cell bodies, and gray you're going to see the strings that connect everything. And so when you look at a brain, you've seen a picture of it, and it's all the wrinkly stuff on the outside, and that outer surface is where you're going to find the cell bodies. That's the 10% of your brain that they're talking about, right? It's we're using the 10%. The other 90% that we're not using are connections. We're not using them. It's this misunderstanding of how the brain works to actually
it's like
say
a car,
right?
And then the motor is the 10%.
Right. And so the idea that we're going to have this other 90% that we can unlock is just not true, right? But there's obviously so much about it we don't understand, right? If you talk about exceptional, like someone that has a photographic memory, or someone that can do math super fast, right, or someone that sees colors, or someone that does art completely differently. I mean, there are people that can look and turn around and go into another room and completely redraw a picture exactly to the finest detail. We don't understand how that works. And I mean, I think obviously there's a potential that we're all capable of those things, because you might have somebody that falls and has a head injury, and all of a sudden they develop one of those abilities. Right. So it's there. But I think it's a connection issue. Something happens that makes a connection that lets them start doing that. But I don't think it's, we necessarily have another 90% of our brain to unlock. It's not quite that simple. But
could it be downloaded from, like, just say DNA or our ancestors? Like, does that information pass down and pass over? Oh, was you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Can that be transferred or downloaded for, say, like, at our age, we just download some information somehow from that's already stored?
I think the question you're asking, which is the same thing I'm thinking, is can that connection be made? Like you said that there is a disconnection somewhere. Is why they don't have those abilities, right?
Right.
So is that a connection that we can open scientifically to where you kind of help that person, have access to that? Like, is that what Elon Musk is doing with the Neuralinks? Right. Is he trying to, like?
I don't think it actually opens anything else. I mean, in his, like, the Neuralink's mostly about interface between humans and outside of the brain, right? Like, I can use my brain to control this or that or something else, and that's a lot of computer chips and electrical signals.
He's talking about paraplegics learning how to walk again, like their body.
Like he's trying to connect, connect. Is that something that we can do?
That's not something we can do yet.
Okay.
And it's not reconnecting, is it? It's actually controlled or programmed.
I think he's more thinking about, it's more like what the chip, the chip actually is the ideal long term is it's connected to your brain programs and controls it. And that controls other things. But as far as information that's there, I don't think it's information that's there. I mean, there's no logical way I can say that there's obviously information stored in DNA, but it's how to make proteins, right? Which is what makes us us. But there's no way that I'm
that's funny
aware of that you could store information like a computer information.
Yeah. So like if my granddad was in World War II, he can't pass his memories down to me where I can just recall them just the way it happened to him.
Not in any way that I know of. So memories would be something that you wouldn't necessarily say are passed on, right? I mean, definitively, there's something that changes in people sometimes, that their capabilities change significantly, right? I've had kids come through my class. I've had people fail a class fantastically. I mean, not fail, they got a 50%. I mean, fail, they got a 10%. Like, fail fantastically. And come back in the next semester, and I'm thinking, there's another professor that teaches. Maybe you should try that person, because obviously this didn't work last semester. And it doesn't happen often, but occasionally I've had those kids fail fantastically and come back. And I've had a couple cases where they come back and they just kill the class. I mean, they get A's on everything. Mm-hmm. And there's just this change in how they think and how they behave. And there's a motivational thing. They finally figured out what they want in life.
Could be a maturity thing, too.
Yeah. Well, and we say maturity, and that's true. And I think it's what they want, right? They have a reason. And, so, I mean, it's one of those things of you got sober and you found that there's stuff that's more interesting. You're like, hey, I want to think about this and learn about this. And it turns out learning's not hard.
No.
If you want to do it. If you want to do it, it's not difficult. It's not a task anymore, right? I mean,
and it can be addicting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since we're on this subject, it was actually a question that I wrote down. As far as we're talking about passes.
We'll take a break.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you hold that quick question and we'll start right back over there?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll take a break.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break, man. Pay the bills. I like that. You know what I'm saying? So we'll be right back.